Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we will discuss about morphology and semantics. But before we start the discussion, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ramadhina Nurfajria as your moderator for today. Next, I also want to say thank you to Mr. Dedi who has attended this meeting and also to our beloved friends and also the audiences. Today, we have two special guests. They are Raissa Rahmania Putri and Nur Iliyyin. First, I want to say hi to Raissa. Hi Raissa, how's your days going?
Hello, I'm truly fine. Thank you for asking, Ramadhina.
Well, nice to meet you, Raissa. Next, I want to say hi to Sarah. Hi Sarah, how are you?
Hello Ramadhina, I'm good. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Sarah. So, we have three topics that we will discuss today. They are semantic interpretation of morphological structure, semantics and syntactic valency, and polysemy. First, we'll discuss about semantic interpretation of morphological structure, and it will be discussed by Raissa. Raissa, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ramadhina, for the opportunity to explain the material. So, first let's begin with the semantic interpretation of morphological structure. There is a term of compositionality principle. It is the main principle of interface between formal structure and semantic structure. In other words, the main principle that the meaning of a complex expression is determined by the meanings of its constituent expression and the rules used to combine them. It means that the meaning of a complex word can be obtained from its internal structure. This composition function requires more detailed specification, which this specification is a semantic scope that reflects the structural hierarchy. There is several examples from it. Number one is coming from the nouns of Amerindian language. As you can see, in the left one is yuk, pak, kwa, and then the right one is yuk, kwa, pag. In the example on the left, the yuk, kwa means little, has been added to the stem after the yuk, pak, it means big. This means that kwa does modify the meaning of the whole stem yuk, pak, and the inverse situation applies on the right example as well. And then we move to examples number 2, such as adjectives. Unbelievable. It means that cannot be believed. The prefix "un" has scope over the stem believable. In the case of compounds, it is the notion head that we need for proper semantic interpretation. The meaning on the non-head of a compound function as a modifier of the head. The other examples coming from the nominal compounds of Dutch. It is graanmolen or cornmeal and mustardmolen. It means mustard mill. Headship indices the is-a relation. A graanmolen is a molen. The relationship between head and non-head can be circumscribed as has some relation to. This is what is called intentionally vague semantic qualification. But it will be different if we rephrase it as graanmolen becomes meal that greens corn, and then mustardmolen, meal that green mustard seeds for the production of mustard. We can say that language with right-headed compounds is that compound structure AB correlates with the semantic structure RBA. That is, B has some relation to A. The exact nature of this relation is word knowledge instead of grammar. In some cases, knowledge of the context in which a compound is used. The other examples still coming from the Dutch language. As we can see in the picture, this example has a meaning as action that has some relationship R with the base noun. But the exact nature of this relation varies from word to word. But The meaning of these verbs is computable on the basis of the meaning of their base nouns, with the provision of further information on these proper names. Also, with a specific interpretation, it may become the conventionalist interpretation, which is it a must for English verbs that derive from proper nouns. And then we move to other examples that coming from Afrikaans. These sentences have a conceptualization rule that sound if A has the meaning component countable thing, the property increased must receive a numerical interpretation. So we can see at the example, there's word of bottles, bottles. It can be changed into many bottles. As we can see, in the example 2, there is conceptualization rule that sound it is a verb that is reduplicated. So verbs denote events with the measurable property of duration. Hence, with verbs, the notion increase should be interpreted as increase of time. So, as we can see in the picture, word lick can be replaced by licks and relics. We move to the other examples. As you can see, there's a word of the American flag. The meaning contribution of the different denominational suffixes involved are all the same, related to base noun. An American flag denotes the flag of America, not a flag that is American in nature. Due to this relational nature of such adjectives, they cannot be used in predicative position, nor they can be modified unless each one in a form like this. That flag is not American but Canadian, and then that flag is blue, or a very blue flag. By adding a modifier, relational adjectives can be forced to be interpreted as qualifying adjectives. And then there is also the term of bracketing paradox. It concerns morphologically complex words that have more than one analysis or brackets. You can see the examples in the pictures. The moral philosophy is reversed to someone who deals with moral philosophy, not a philosopher who is moral. And then it can be interpreted to in a good athlete. It is reversed to someone who is good as an athlete, not necessarily a good person. But in notes, in these cases, this interpretation cannot be attributed to a difference in bracketing between the formal and the semantic structure. And then there is a term of abstract grammatical morpheme. It is a features or morphemes that dealing with the interpretation of the past tense form. The semantic scope of this property is not just the verb itself, but the whole event described. The examples is Andreas saw the accident. This event of Andreas saying the accident took place before the moment of speaking.
Wow, such a great explanation. Thank you, Raissa. Okay, next, we will discuss about semantics and syntactic valency. The arguments accompanying a verb can be described from different angles, semantically or according to their meaning, and syntactically, according to their function in the sentence, such as subject, object, or adverb modifier. One of the functions of morphology is to change the syntactic category of words with the effect that other syntactic uses are made possible. A cross-linguistically very common form is that of action nominalization, in which verbal constructions are deverbalized and acquire a noun-like behavior. Talking about deverbalization is the technique of sentence decomposition in order to arrive at sentence meaning. Every sentence is made of words, which in themselves could be lexical or grammatical. Okay, Raissa, can you give us some examples of deverbalization?
Yeah, sure, Ramadhina. So, there are degrees of deverbalization as the following examples of the verbal nominalization in English show. Number 1 is Chris was shocked that Pat illegally destroyed the evidence. Number 2 is Chris was shocked by Pat having illegally destroyed the evidence. Number 3, Chris was shocked by Pat having illegally destroyed the evidence. Number 4, Chris was shocked by Pat's illegally destroying of the evidence. And then last, number 5, Chris was shocked by Pat's illegal destruction of the evidence. In number 2 to 4, we see the gerundive nominal serving destroyed and destroying. And in number 5, the deverbal action noun destruction. In the sentence 2 until 5, these deverbal nouns are used as the heads of a noun phrase. This can be concluded from the fact that they occur in a prepositional phrase with the preposition by. Yet they show some verb-like behavior as well. Furthermore, in number 2 and number 3, the object of the verb destroy, the phrase the evidence, and appears as a bare noun phrase. Without a preposition, this is of course a prototypical property rather than of nouns. In number 5, the complement noun phrase of destruction has to be preceded by a preposition, the default preposition of.
Thank you for the examples, Raissa. Now, let's move on to inheritance. Sarah, what do you know about inheritance?
Okay, the partial preservation of the syntactic valency of the base of such complex words is referred to as inheritance.
Yeah, that's right. When there are differences in syntactic valency between verbs and their corresponding development nouns, these differences can be seen as reflecting differences in their semantic structure. This shows once more strong dependence of syntactic valency on the properties of words. The syntactic expression of inherited arguments of such deferable nouns seems to be optional. There are some comparison of the examples. Pat's destruction of evidence, the destruction of evidence, Pat's destruction, the destruction. In the third example, Pat is interpreted as the patient of destruction, not as an agent, unless there is some specific context in which objects can be omitted. Action nouns can further develop from simple events nouns into denoting the result of the action. In the latter interpretation, they no longer denote an event with participants, and hence do not allow for agent phrases. When such nouns are interpreted as result nouns, they can be pluralized. There are also some plural deferable nouns that exclude the use of agent phrases. Can you guys give me some explanation and also the example of those?
Plural deferable nouns exclude the use of agent phrases. Extensive collections of shells by Andreas. These expressions by my father are old-fashioned. The issue of inheritance of syntactic valency also crops up in the analysis of compounds of the following type: coffee maker, pasta eater, storyteller, truck driver. The semantic structure of maker will then be as follows with the PAS of its verbal base incorporated: X make, X agent, Y patient. The semantic structure is a slightly more formal representation of the informal description of the meaning of maker as one who makes something. The semantic effect of the ER suffix of is that it binds the X argument of the verbal base. This means that this argument cannot be expressed anymore. Hence, only the Y argument is left to be expressed by a nominal, either as the left constituent of a compound or as an NP that is preceded by the default preposition of. Both the compound coffee maker and the phrase maker of coffee are well-formed expressions. The inheritance of syntactic valency as analyzed here is the effect of preservation of argument structure of the base words. There is, however, also a kind of inheritance of a more syntactic nature with little or no semantic involved.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. Verbs may also select a specific preposition for the complement they occur with, a prepositional object. This also applies to a variety of adjectives. This choice of preposition is an idiosyncrasy that has to be encoded in the lexicon, and this choice is taken over by the derived word, as illustrated in the slideshows. This implies that in these cases, there is a transfer of specific syntactic subcategorization information from the base word for its derivative. The relation between the semantics of a word formation process and its effect on syntactic valency is also at stake in two other English word formation processes: the coining of the verbal adjective ending in able and middle verbs, such as the example in the slideshows. So we already discussed the sentences that are grammatically correct. Sarah, would you like to give us the example of an grammatical sentences?
Of course, I'll give you some examples. This tea is drinkable by Mary. This book reads easily by John. These sentences are the example of ungrammatical sentences.
Thank you, Sarah. Such an amazing examples. Okay, so before we continue to the next discussion, we will see the performance from our guest star from Group 10. Group 10, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Salsabila from English Literature 3E. The story of Prophet Yunus and the whale. A long time ago, in a place called Assyria, Allah sent a prophet to the people of Nineveh. His name was Prophet Yunus. Allah commanded Prophet Yunus to teach the people of Nineveh to give up corruption and greed, and to turn to Allah. He also wanted them to stop doing evil and lead a good life. But the people of Nineveh wouldn't listen to Prophet Yunus, and he felt like giving up. Even though he was a prophet, he still felt sad and let down when he saw horrible things happen around him. Prophet Yunus tried to stay strong, day after day, but no one availed. So he left the city. After leaving the city, Prophet Yunus boarded his ships and set sail to go far away from the city that he left behind. Once at sea, a dark and scary storm started to take place. Waves as high as mountains covered the ships in water and began to fill with water, weighing it down. They tried to throw Logit overboard, but it didn't work. So, the people of the ship decided that they would throw a man overboard. They drew names to decide who to throw overboard. They selected Prophet Yunus' name, but the people believed him to be a good man and didn't want to throw him overboard. So they tried again and again. His name was drawn. They drew names a few more times, and each time the name that kept coming up was Prophet Yunus. It was clear now to the sailors of they must throw Prophet Yunus into the sea in order to protect the ships. And Prophet Yunus fell into the dark, stormy sea. But once he was in the water, something extraordinary happened. Allah sent a whale to swallow Prophet Yunus whole. This was actually a great miracle to Prophet Yunus. Did you know the blue whale is the largest animal that ever lived and get away as much as 24 elephants? Whales are unique, beautiful, graceful, and mysterious. They nurture each other from friendship, innovate, grieve, play, sing, and cooperate with one another. Once inside the belly of the whale, Prophet Yunus descended to the bottom of the sea, filled with total despair. How will I survive this? How do I get out of this situation? He thought. And worst of all, he was surrounded by complete darkness. The darkness of the whale's stomach, the darkness of the sea, and the darkness of his own thoughts. Even though Prophet Yunus believed in Allah and was a prophet, he felt doubt and sadness. He began to reflect on his action. He left the people before Allah had asked him to leave, and he felt regret over giving up so quickly. It was the tip of his sadness that suddenly things changed. The Quran says, "And he called out within the darkness, 'There is no God but you, glory to be you. Indeed, I have certainly done wrong.'" In that moment, Prophet Yunus realized that Allah was in control of all things and then asking for help. Allah heard his prayer. The whale began to sing praises of Allah and everyone in the sea began to sing praises of Allah. The whale swam to the surface of the sea and to the shore where he gently received Prophet Yunus back to land. Just as Allah saved Prophet Yunus from the storm and drowning in the sea, he also brought his prophet safely back to land. Once the prophet had recovered from his ordeal, he returned to Nineveh where he learned that the people of the city had turned to Allah. There are so many beautiful lessons from the story of Prophet Yunus. If you ever feel like you are in the belly of the whale, surrounded by darkness, with no way out, turn to Allah and place your trust in Him. He will surely rescue you and provide a way out for you too, inshallah.
Wow, such a great performance of Group 10. Thank you so much, Group 10, for your amazing performance. Now let's move on to the last topic, which is about polysemy, and it will be discussed by Sarah. So, what does the term polysemy mean, Sarah?
Polysemy comes from the Greek, which means many signs. Polysemy refers to the quality of some words to have several related meanings. A word which has several related meanings is the polysemy. For example, the word head, which has some meanings. First, the top part of the body in humans and some other higher animals. And then person, as in dinner at $20 a head. And then leader.
I wonder, how many types of polysemy, and can you give me the examples of each types?
Sure, in linear polysemy accounts for a specialization, generalization, relation between sense, and it divided into several types. First, autohyponymy. Basic sense leads to a specialized sense. For example, dog, which may refer to the general sense of member of a canine race as a counterpoint to other races, or to the more specific sense of masculine member of a canine race, making a gender distinction inside the same species. And then automeronymy. Basic sense leads to a subpart sense. For example, table, which could make reference to the whole piece of furniture or just to the tabletop. And then auto-superordination. Basic sense leads to a wider sense. For example, the use of the word man as referring to mankind and the same word as opposed to woman. And then autoholonymy. Basic sense leads to a larger sense. For example, the word arm with one of its sense, including the hand. In nonlinear polysemy, the original sense of the word is used figuratively to provide a different way of looking at the new subject, and it divided into several types. First, metonymy, where one sense stands for another. For example, from hands, body part, to hands, manual labors. And then metaphor, where there is a resemblance between sense. For example, from swallowing a pill to swallowing an argument. and then other construals, for example, from month of the year to month 30 days.
Okay, such an understandable explanation, Sarah. Thank you so much. Okay, I think that's the end of our discussion for today. Thank you so much for your attention. Before I close the talk show, do you guys have any question?
The Fox and the Stork. Foxy Fox and Ellie Stork were good friends. One day, Foxy told Ellie, "Please come to my house for dinner tonight. I'm going to make some lovely soup." Ellie was very happy and said, "Oh, thank you. I love soup. I will come to your house tonight." Ellie came to Foxy's house. Ellie could smell the soup. "The soup smells lovely," said Ellie. "Thank you," said Foxy. He then served the soup in flat plates. Foxy had his soup very quickly. Poor Ellie could not drink the soup with her long bill. Foxy looked up at Ellie and said, "Oh, don't you like my soup? Well, I shall have you share also." Poor Ellie went home hungry. She was also very angry. After a few days, Ellie said, "Foxy, it is my turn to invite you for dinner. Please come to my house tonight." Foxy was very happy and went to Ellie's house. He was very hungry. "Thank you for calling me for dinner, Ellie," said Foxy. "Thank you for coming," said Ellie. "I will bring the soup now. You must be hungry." That smells really lovely," said Foxy. Ellie brought the soup into tall pitchers. "Please have your soup, Foxy," said Ellie. She put a pitcher of soup in front of Foxy. Ellie drank her soup very quickly. Foxy only looked at Ellie and the lovely soup. His mouth could not reach the soup inside the tall pitcher. He went home very hungry and also very angry.